to doing it. Let me know when you're ready, okay? And I'll share my screen.
Yeah, all good.
You are brilliant. All right, guys. Let's do this. Okay, let me start from the beginning. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, we can see it. Oh, I
Awesome.
Yes.
can see it. Yeah.
Thank you. All right, so this session is a tutorial on business process maps. We're just going to touch on what they are, the different types, how they're used, and how to create them. And at the end of the session, we're going to do a few practical steps, on how to do it. Um, Again, we're going to touch on the definition, some of the key features, some pre-work and how to, the uses and types, tips and tools, and then there's the Q&A at the end of it. For this, I just want to give you a few tips. Please listen attentively and actively. So I hope you have, even though it's being recorded, I hope you have your pen and paper with you, or however you take notes. Some people take electronic notes, but please take notes. It's scientifically proven that when you write stuff down, you retain a lot more, between a huge percentage more. So please take down notes. As you're hearing new concepts, a lot of words are going to be coming at you. So as you're hearing them, write them down. Write down some of the impressions you have as you're hearing them, and then write down any questions that come as a result of what you're hearing. So even though we'll take questions at the end of the session, or well, we'll have some breaks, like question breaks in between. So once it's time, I can ask if you have any questions. And if you've written down any questions, you can ask me at that point. But please try to do that. It's a very good habit and it helps you retain a lot more. And then, like I said, you're going to be hearing a lot of terms. So what you can do is start taking down, making a personal glossary of the new terms you're learning. So even these things like process map, all these different things you're going to learn. As you learn a new term, a new business analysis term, write it down, and then write down, even if you can't get the definition here now, you can go and, like, further down, just write down the definition of what those words are, and that's your own personal glossary, and it will help you immensely when you're creating your CV. Immensely. Business analysis is about a lot of all these terms, so when you're building your CV, you won't have to remember. You already have your glossary to refer to. And my final tip is, again, this session is max what, an hour and a half. We've already used like 30 minutes for the intro, so there's no way we can go through everything you need, but this is to start you off, just start you with the basics. And then once you're done with this, there are loads of resources. I'm so sorry, I just saw a mistake I made there. But anyway, there are loads of resources that are available to you. Please use them. Human resources, we, your trainers, your mentors, your buddies. There are loads of videos, these ones, previous videos, prep major videos. There are loads and loads of resources. So even after their YouTube videos, their textbooks on business analysis. So let this just be the start of your learning of this, and definitely not the end of it. All right, so now let's go to some definitions. So what this is a tutorial on business process mapping. So it begs the question, what exactly is a business process? So a business process is a series of tasks or activities within the business that have specific input and output. So someone does something and something happens as a result of it, and it's performed by individuals, teams, even applications, and it's meant to achieve a specific goal. Okay, so it's a series and it's repeatable. So that's what a process is. You're just basically, this is your what is the start of the process, what is included in the process, what tasks and activities are included in the process, what do people do, and what happens when they do it, and then what happens after that, and you do that from the start to the end. So that's basically what a process is. Then a process map is a visual model of all this business process that we just explained. So now we want to create a visual model of all those activities in the sequence that it occurs. Okay, so that's a process map. You take a process and you want to show create a visual model of it. Okay, and then it's actually different from process modeling, although they're used interchangeably. A process model is being able to highlight what those steps are. So for example, let me give you an example. You you want to apply for a job, yeah, and they say, okay, I apply for the job and I hear back from the HR. That's just from your perspective, but then there's an organizational perspective as well. So the organization receives your application, they vet it, they go through, they now decide, do we want to call this person in for an interview, or do we want to, maybe reject the application and all of that. That's a very simplified what do they call it, business process. Now, even that process, there are different steps that need to happen. So for example, the process of applying, you need to find out what the job application is. Then maybe you log on to their website, you go to the particular application, you fill the form, you click on submit. Once you submit, what happens? It goes into the system, probably goes to the HR manager or maybe to the line manager, and so on and so forth. So there's a process that an application for a job in a company goes through. To model it, you now want to think about, okay, what is this process? Let me break it down. Let me list out all the steps sequentially, how it happens. Then once you're done modeling, you can create a process map. So you've gone through what the sequence is. You know what the different inputs and outputs, who does what, where, what actions happen and what is the result or the outcome of that action. And then you're now like, okay, fine, now I know what the process is. I've modeled the process. I want to create a visual representation of that model. And that's how you now get a process map. So sometimes they're used interchangeably, but they kind of mean different things, slight nuances. Okay. So again, a process is different from a project. Yeah. You are working on a project. A project is a one-time, what do they call it? Object, like an activity. It's temporary. For example, it's for a limited time. It has specific goals. You use specific resources and you get unique or specific deliverables. Okay, so a project, you're working on the SharePoint project, that's your project. So everything you do is for the benefit of that particular deliverable at the end of the day. And remember, we told you it's for 1 month, 2 sprints. That's a specific timeline. You have specific goals. There are resources you need to use for that. There are people that need to be involved in that process, and it's temporary. So one time, once you've delivered on it, that's it. We're not going to have another SharePoint project again because you've already delivered on it. But a process is a business activity that is a series of tasks and activities and is usually repeatable. So for example, I'm an HR manager, using the example that we use. I come in and we're like, okay, we want to hire a BA for a particular task. And then there's a series of tasks and activities that go into even getting the job description ready, putting it out there, getting applications, vetting them, deciding who is going to, be called for an interview, who is going to be called for the second interview, who is going to be offered the role. Once they're offered the role, then they come back in again. That's it, we've gotten a BA. Tomorrow, another project can come and say, guys, we need another BA. And then they'll come again. And, so it's a repeatable task. The input and output are defined. So it's not like it's input output. It's the same. It's like a repeatable process. The tasks and the activities are repeatable. They're consistent. Or let me use another example. For examples, an organization that sells what do we buy regularly? Let's say you buy cereal, maybe for your kids or for yourself, whoever. So there is maybe you go onto their website and you purchase. There's a system for buying that particular product. You go, you click on it, you put it in your basket, they take your money, they package it for you, and they deliver it to you. And then tomorrow again, you come again and you purchase. Not even just you, someone else purchases, another person purchases. So that purchase, that sale and purchase and sale process is repeatable and it's defined. So that's a business process. So that's the difference between the two. Don't mix them together. Now, why do we want to highlight or identify business processes? You use them to identify organizational weaknesses and pain points for business improvement. You use them to understand what the stakeholders' goals and objectives are. So a stakeholder, remember, a stakeholder is anyone who has an interest in whatever it is you're doing. So it could be anything from the customer to the customer agent or sales rep to the manager to all the different people who have the supplier, the all kinds of people, So there are loads of different stakeholders. You can use the process to understand how what their goals and objectives are, and then again for business improvement, you can you can capture what the current process is. So say for example, you come into an organization and they want to change how they do things. Again, the example, let me use another example of recruitment. So say, for example, an organization is used to recruiting people by putting out a job description, and maybe they used to get 20, 30, 40 CVs for a particular role. Now they're getting hundreds. And they're like, oh my God, we can't, there are too many. We just don't know how to vet it. There's no time to go. And this is just one role. Meanwhile, it may be a huge organization and they're recruiting constantly for loads of different roles and they get hundreds of applications. And it's not feasible to be able to manage, for human beings to be able to manage that volume. So they want to think about, okay, so how can we manage this process better? How can we do this better? And they're like, okay, fine. There is a software called Applicant Tracking System, ATS, that is able to vet all the CVs. We just feed in the job description to it. All the hundreds of CVs go, and then the system is able to vet all those CVs and then send us maybe like the 10 or 20 top candidates who meet our criteria and who fit the job description. It's called an ATS. I'm not making it up. It's actually true. So we want to install an ATS and use that to manage the system. In order to understand the benefit of what that ATS will do, you have to capture what the current process is. How are they managing it now? Yes, you know that there's a problem, but you need to be able to capture the current process. It's called an as is process. So this is the process as it is, as it currently is. That's what it is. So you want to capture it. What do people do? Where are the bottlenecks? Where is the pain point? Where are the weaknesses? Where are they struggling? Where are their strengths? There might be a part where, like, man, this thing is so good. We have to make sure that when we change, we don't lose this particular thing. We're doing it really well. So strengths, weaknesses, all of that. And then you use that to design the future state of the process. So now, once you've installed the ATS system, how will it work? How is it going to flow? What are the benefits? And the future state of your process is called to be. So that's your to be process. So you can use your process map to capture the current process, the as is process. Use it to capture the future or to be process. Okay. And again, like I said, is a visual representation of the process. So if, for example, you're talking to somebody and you're saying, okay, and this will happen and that will happen, and it's like, I don't even know what you're talking about. You're talking about so many different things. You can say, okay, fine, let me draw a picture. Let me model it for you. Let me create a process map for you and show you how each, function or each role works, what they're all doing, and then it's easy to spot like the strengths and the weaknesses. So you're just creating a visual, a map of what the business process is. Like I've talked about organizational design. So continuous business improvement, you want to be able to capture how the organization works, what they do. You want to document what the process is. There's a lot of businesses where they have processes, but it's not documented. So someone, for example, has been in that place for like 5, 10 years, and they know exactly what to do. They have tacit knowledge. They've done it for how many years and they know what to do. So you're not asking them, so what do you do? And the person's like, I can't really explain. I know what to do, but I can't really explain it. So sometimes you use the process map to actually explain what each role does. What process does this particular role go through, or this task go through? So again, I keep talking about continuous business improvement. Businesses they always have strategic goals and objectives, and they're like, okay, so how do we achieve what our goal is? And sometimes you need to draw a map to say, okay, we're going to do it this way, and then once we do it this way, this is going to be the result, and that's how we're going to achieve our goals as a business. Again, benchmarking. So benchmarking is basically how do the other industry competitors, how is it done in your industry? So you use like the top businesses in your industry as a benchmark. For example, let's say you are again you are a university that wants to that let me use the same example so I don't confuse you guys. Again, you're an organization that wants to start using ATS, and then you already know that some of the top um, tech industries, you're probably in the tech industry, some of the top businesses and top in the tech industry already use the ATS system. So Apple uses it, Google uses it, Oracle uses it, IBM uses it, all the top big boys, they all use it. So you now benchmark, how do they use it, what benefits are they deriving from it, because you haven't used it before. So you use their own process as a benchmark to say, if we do what they do, we'll most likely get the same results they're getting. So that's what benchmarking is. Again, process monitoring and controlling. So you may know that there's a bottleneck or there's a weakness and you don't really know how to capture it. So you can use a process map to do that. Process reorganization, you want to move things around. Maybe some people, you want to bring in people, take people away, all of that. You want to reorganize your organization. In order to do that, you may need to map out what the roles are currently doing and what the new roles are going to be doing. Knowledge management, like I said, some people have not this knowledge. They've been there for how many years and they're the only ones that know how to do it. If God forbid anything happens to them tomorrow, that's how they're taking their knowledge and going away. And then they're like, okay, so how did this person do it? Oh, we don't know. We just know that he did his work well. So sometimes you may need to say, okay, do you know what? Yeah, let's map out this process for getting this thing done. So if for any reason you're no longer there, that knowledge will be retained within the organization. And again, training and induction, very similar. A new person comes in and they're like, okay, so how do you do things in this organization? There are process maps to show them this is, this is the hierarchy, this is how things are done. If you want approval, this is how you go about it. These are all the different functions or different roles or different business units that are involved in this process. So these are some of the benefits that you get from business process mapping. Okay, so again, there are different levels of process maps. Okay, there's the high level, so just very, very high level. For example, again, using the example we've been using, someone applies, HR looks at it, they tell them, you've been selected for an interview, or no, we're not interested at this time, we'll keep your CV on tap. That's high level. They've told you what happens. But there is more. you can actually delve into, say that it's, yes, you've told me the high level, you've given me the high level overview of what the process is, but let's go deeper. Tell me exactly what the application process entails. Tell me what the review process entails. Tell me what the interview process entails. Like, tell me what are all the different roles and business units involved in it. And that's, so level 0 is your high level, just, very high level um process map. Then you go to your level 1, which is a breakdown of some of the major processes into sub process. A sub process is, you take a business process and then you break it down. So like I said, um the high level just told you, you apply, it is reviewed, and then you get a response, interview, no interview. A sub process is, you take the application process and break it down. So let's leave the other ones here. Let's focus on one process. So in this high level process, you take the application process. The application process becomes a sub process of the whole. Now break down what the application process entails. You do that. What of the review process? Break that one down. That's a sub process. So again, like I said, sub processes are just breaking down the different processes into sub processes. And again, the level 2 is, you now break down the sub processes into specific activities or tasks. And level 3 is, you go even more granular. You now take each activity or task flow and now break down each of the detailed steps required for it. So there are different levels. Sometimes they ask you to create a process map. One of the first questions you ask them is, what level do you want me? Do you want me to do like a high level, or do you want me to do like a level 1, a bit of a breakdown, or do you want me to go down into like the specific tasks, or do you want me to pick one particular activity and break that one down? So you have to talk about the level, of the process map that you need to create. Very, very important. Otherwise, they can ask you to create a business process map and you go and you do maybe a level 2, which is like a breakdown of the different sub processes, and you come and give them, and they're like, we just wanted a high level overview. We've not even gotten to the stage where we're doing details. We just want to know, we just want to have an idea of how these things are done. So you'd have done all that work and they didn't really need it. Or you could come with a high level and like, no, 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 we know how these things are done. We want you to give us a proper breakdown of all the different sub processes, all the parties involved, all those sorts of things. So it's important to ask, when you're asked to create a process map, what granularity are you asking for, or what level are you asking for? Okay, so these are some terms that are commonly used in creation of process maps. We will deal with some of them at a further down. So, but this is just to give you like some just a quick explanation as to some of the commonly used terms and words that are used. Again, I've been using activity and task. It's that's the most granular step. So what is the task or activity that is done within this business process? Remember, a process is a series of tasks and activities. So what is the particular thing that is done? That's a task. The actors, we already know who these are. In a user story, we call them the users. The actors are, who are the participants, who are those involved. So in this particular process, who are the people? Remember, we said a process is done by individuals, or it's done by groups of people, or it's done by a system. So who are the actors in this thing? Who are all the people involved? That's basically what that is. I've explained what a sub process is. I've explained what granularity and levels are. An event is so again, like I said, a process has a definite start and a definite end. So it's not just unending. It has a specific start and a specific end. So an event is that thing that triggers a process to start. For example, you know, going back to our example, I'll switch examples very soon, but just kind of keeping a consistency in the example. Um, so um, so what is the event that triggers the process? In the example we've been using in applying for a role, can anyone guess what would be the event that would trigger that application process?
Is it the job? If let's say, for example, I press submit for a CV, could that be?
Um, very, 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 very awesome. That's what that is. You literally, so again, it depends on what your level is. In a high level, that is exactly the event. So you can pressing, actually applying. So yes, submit, clicking submit, starting the application, that's the event that triggers it off. So someone applies, and then once someone applies, then the process is triggered off. What happens? Where does the application go? So on and so forth, and so forth. So the event is also called a trigger. In loads of different processes, you have to identify what the trigger is or what the event is that starts it off. Sometimes in a customer agent relationship, it could be a call. So customer calls you. Once a customer calls you, that triggers the event. Okay, so what's the process? An agent picks up the phone. When they pick up the phone, there's a script they read, and then based on what the customer says, oh, I have a complaint, or what's your complaint, blah 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 blah, and then there's a complaint process, or I want to buy something, there's a purchase process. So the event of the customer calling is a trigger that triggers that. So you always have to identify what is the start or trigger of the process, and where does it end. It has to have a definite end. It must end. It's not just continuous. Every process has a start and every process has an end. So a trigger or the start is also called an event. Swim lanes, you're going to hear a lot of this. Just think, I'm going to go in depth into it, but just think a swimming pool, for example, an Olympic sized swimming pool. You have a huge swimming pool. It's one pool, but then each swimmer has a specific lane. So they have to swim in their lane and do what they're doing in their own lane. And while they're doing that, other people are doing other things in their own lane as well. So when you think of swim lanes, just think Olympic sized pool. In this particular context, it's the different functions and roles or business units that are involved in that process. Again, using okay, let me give an example with different example. A customer calls and wants to return something they bought. Yeah. So I'm calling, I don't like the color, it's issues, blah 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 blah. I want to return it. So it starts off a chain, a process. Okay, it starts off a process, a business process, a return business process. Always remember, try as much as possible to name your processes. It really helps. So let's call it the return process. And then so they pick up the call, maybe an agent, a sales agent picks up the phone, I want to return it. Okay, fine. We'll send you a code, and then you can use this code, and you can either drop it in the post office or put it in the post box, or we'll have someone deliver it from you, collect it from you. And then once we do that, we will refund your money. So there's the customer who is an actor, or he's a participant in this process. You have the sales agent who is taking the call, and they're like, okay, this is how we handle returns. And then you have the finance department who is going to receive a notification that this customer wants a refund, and then the finance department refunds the money. So that means you have three different actors. Now, when you're creating a process, then more than two people normally. So that's three, sometimes four, five. It's called a cross-functional process. There are many different functions involved. So each of those particular functions has their own lane. There are things I do. Yes, I interact with one or the other two people, but generally I stay in my lane. The things I do are in my lane. Once I'm done with it, I pass it over to someone else's lane, and they do whatever else they need to do, and so on and so forth. So you have a process that is cross-functional. It cuts across different business units, different people are involved, not just one or two people. So that's when swim lanes come in. That's going to be important. Like I said, pay attention to that. We'll come back to that a bit later. So you now have another one called a decision point or a gateway. So this is another important aspect or element of a business process, and that basically means um, it. So it's a gateway, like I said, or a decision point. So there is a decision to be made here. If I say yes, I go in a particular direction. If I say no, I go in a different direction. So, for example, um, again, going back to our return policy or our policy where, I received this t-shirt and it's too small for me. And then I'm calling to say, I don't like the shirt. Um, what are you going to do about it? And they ask you, do you want a refund or do you want us to give you another t-shirt in your size? That's a decision. If I say I want a refund, the path that the customer goes is a different process. It changes in one way. If I say I want another t-shirt, the process goes in a different way. So that point where there is a question or a decision to be made, that's called either a gateway, so it leads into one path or the other, or a decision point. So again, these are different elements that come into play when you're creating or modeling a process or creating a process map. Now, this one again is another one we're going to go into depth. Is business process modeling and notation, and then unified modeling language. There are two kinds of business processes. Learn these again. We're going to try and touch them in as part of this very briefly, but learn these, and once you've learned them, definitely put them in your CV. They're really good skills and techniques to know. Business process modeling and notation is a kind of language, and then unified modeling language. I'll touch it a bit more as we go on. Then the final one is sequence flow. Remember, the process goes in a particular sequence. It has a different flow. It's usually from left to right. Sometimes people do from top to bottom. We'll see those different types. But what's the flow? So how does it flow? What sequence does it follow? One, again, like I keep saying, one of the reasons I really like business analysis is a lot of the terms that are used are, it's English. Once you understand it, a gateway, you just know, what it is, a swim lane. Like it's just a sequence. It's just an event, an actor. It's English. So a lot of times the name gives you a hint or it tells you what this thing is regarding. So yeah, so the sequence flow. The different types of process maps. Now we have like the basic flow chart. It has a start. Remember, it has to have a start and an end. So it's just a simple visual map. It's usually high level. Yes, very, very simple. A, B, C, D, step one, step two, yes, no. Remember, I told you about the decision point. So if you say no, this step two happens. If you say yes, it ends. So depending on what path you take or what decision you make, you can go into you can go one way or the other. So that's just a visual representation of what I've been talking about. So this is just a simple basic flow chart. A flow chart is the steps of a process. So sometimes people call it a process map, a flow chart. It's just what's the flow of tasks and activities. That's just basically what it is. Sometimes you even hear people call it a workflow. If you're not sure, you could just ask, when you say workflow, do you mean a process map or, all those sorts of things? There are some terms that are a bit interchangeable. So sometimes you may need clarification, but there are more than one ways to say the same thing. So a flow chart is just a very simple process map. Okay, or a simple visualization of a process map. Then you have the detailed one. So this, for example, could be like a level 1 or a level 2. So you've taken a simple process and you're breaking it down even further. So you can see where the start is and where the end is. And then there are loads of different steps in between. And then you have the decision points. multiple decision points. So if you say yes, you go here. If you say yes, so this is now, we're now going into sub processes. We've left the main one and we're now drilling down, and that's when you now get like a detailed flow chart or process map. So it's a flow chart, again, is the flow of the process. Then you have the value stream diagram. So the value stream diagram is used by companies and organizations, and they just want to map out every single step in how to take a product from the creation to the arm of a customer. And with a lot of these organizations, there are loads of different what do they call it, steps, and loads of different things involved. So then there's material, there's people, there are loads and loads of different things. So a value stream diagram is quite detailed and is used by specific organizations just to try and understand what the value stream is. Remember, value is the kind of value you give people. So in order to give people value, what's the process? What process do we go through? Whether it's a process that brings in money or one that doesn't. Everything is, they just want to know from start to finish what's our process, from, like I said, from the raw material right up to when the product gets to the customer. Then another kind of process diagram is called a CPOC diagram, and that's when you want to highlight the key elements in suppliers, and then their inputs, and then the process, and then the output, and customers. So again, it's a flow. The supplier brings in suppliers, what's their input, what process does it go through, what's the output, and then what value do you give to the customer at the end of the day. It's called the CPOC diagram. Some of these are very specialized, so you may not really get exposure to them, but it's very important that you at least know them. And then that way, if someone asks you, okay, have you ever done a CPOC before or something, you at least know where to start looking. Because sometimes you may not have done this thing, but they tell you go and do it, and like, yeah, no problem, I got you, it's fine. And then you're not gonna find out how to do it and do it. But it's important that you even know what they're asking of you. Okay, so these are some of those ones. Now to go to the one that we need you to know. Okay, so we talked about the cross-functional diagram, and um and that's, again, it's called the swim lane diagram. Okay, those two are very interchangeable. If someone tells you, I need you to create a swim lane process map for me, this is what they're talking about. And then if they tell you, I need you to create a cross-functional diagram for me, process map, this is what they're talking about. So remember, I told you about the different lanes in the swimming pool. So I know this is really small for you to see, but you can see customer here. There's a lane of their activities and tasks. So remember, most of all the things that start with the customer, they are usually the trigger. So you have the start here. What happens here? What happened? There's an event that triggered off the process. And then you now have like the clerk, and you have point of sale terminal, and then you now have a kitchen. So this already tells me it's probably like an order, maybe like a McDonald's or something. So the customer calls and they place their order, and then the clerk takes their order, or the customer service person, and then they take their payment. It goes into the kitchen, is prepared, and then once it's prepared, it goes back to the clerk, who hands it to the customer, and then the process has ended. So every activity and task has its own lane. There's certain things the clerk does, there are certain things the kitchen does. Every actor has its own lane and the things they must do, the activity they must do. So that's really important. And I hope we'll have time I'll show you an actual swim lane and how easy it is to create. It's actually quite easy once you know what the different steps are. So we're going to try and do that. Then the other very important one is called the use case diagram. Okay, so it's called the use case diagram. Some people mix it with user story. It's not the user story. User story is something different. But there are things called a use case. So if, for example, in an organization, they want to tell you what are the different scenarios for using an application or a product. They're asking what are the use cases. How many ways can you use this particular product? So it's called a use case. But then within a process mapping, there is something called a use case diagram. So remember, once you've now understood what the use cases are, then you create use case diagrams. And then they're just very, very high level interactions between the user and a system. Is used in software architecture and design. Is usually between the actor. If you can see there are two stick people at the ends, they're called actors, and then the system is the thing in the middle. So how does the actor interact with the system, and how does, that's basically all it is. So what are the different ways, the use cases, an actor interacts with a system? So let me give you a very quick example. Like I said, I'm going to try as much as possible to delve into these two, because these are a lot of the ones, apart from the basic flow chart, these two are the ones that BAs, once you know these two, you're fine. They know that you know your onions, so they're like the basic ones. Some of the other ones, CPOC and value stream, they're quite detailed and very, very technical. Not saying you can't do them, but it's good to start with these. Yeah. So let's say, for example, a clerk and a customer, the point of sale terminal, is installed. Or let's say, remember when they start giving all these clerks iPads rather than their machines. They'll give them iPads and they'll type in your order in the iPad and then give you the receipt and blah 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 and all of that. So what are the different ways that the clerk can use that point of sale, whether it's an iPad or a terminal? They can use it to make purchase orders. They can use it to refund. They can use it for many different things. So you're capturing the different use cases, the different uses of that particular actor and the particular system. So it's usually very high level, like I said. If you're now talking about multiple functions, business units, you want a cross-functional diagram or a stream lane diagram. Yeah. Before I go into the next step, are you guys good? Are you following? And I'm dropping a lot of information at you, but are you guys following? There'll be some time to ask questions, but I just want to get like feedback. Are you guys good?
Yeah, we're good.
Brilliant. Okay, awesome. Okay, so sorry, I think my presentation skills might leave a bit to be desired. That's BPML, and then this UML. So remember, I told you I was going to tell you what the differences are. So going back to this other slide, this use case diagram is actually the unified modeling language. It's used for more technical software related what do they call it, process maps. And it usually has actors, and then it has their interaction with a system. So again, like I said, it's used in software development or software design, software architecture. There's usually software involved in it. And then for cross-functional diagrams, again, there are basic shapes you use. If you notice, there are a number of different shapes that are used here, although this is very simple. But for BPML, the business process modeling and notation language, there are standardized shapes that are used to capture each task or each activity. Yeah, I'll show you a bit more about it. So this slide basically just wants to highlight what the difference is between the two languages. So BPML, like I said, is used to capture business processes, is specialized. It has specific shapes that are used for specific tasks. So for example, if you want to say there's a data migration project or something, and you want to say, okay, this is where the server is, there's a shape that is used to denote the server. And then if you want to use, like, whatever the process is, someone sends an email to someone else, there's a shape that is used to, capture that. They're just different shapes used to do, so they're specific shapes. Again, like I said, used to model business processes. It's simple, standardized, used to represent tasks, events, flows, and just to show you what the workflow is. So that's basically what the business process, BPMN, that's what it's called. And then, like I said, the unified modeling language is used for software design. Is versatile because it's not really standardized. So although there are a lot of shapes that are used and they're recognizable, but people use different things to do different things. But like I said, it's usually for software design. Is more used for software architecture and design. Again, a whole wide range of diagrams used to illustrate the system structure, behavior, interactions between actors, and all of that. It's in UML that you see the stick figures. So let me go back. It's only once you see a stick figure, you just know it's UML, and they're interacting with the system in between them. So this box here is usually used to highlight what the system is. Once you see this box here, you know that this is a system, and then these are the different actors that are interacting with the system. So the user can, in order to interact with the warehouse personnel, they use the system, and vice versa. So that's their, how they work. So basically, that's a very quick whistle tour of the differences between BPMN and the Unified Modeling Language. All right. Now for a very quick stop. What type of process map is this? Anyone?
Cost function.
Swimlane.
Okay.
BPMN.
BPMN.
Yeah.
Okay. Why? Who said cross-functional?
Shadrach.
Shadrach, why did you say cross-functional?
I think it has to do with the student administration register and 40 advice. So that was similar to the clerk one you talked about, if I'm not
Okay.
mistaken. I don't know.
So they're different functions, yeah?
Yeah.
That's very, very correct. Now, for the BPMN, sometimes BPMN symbols are used in cross-functional process map, but not always. Okay, there's some standard ones that once people see, they already recognize, and sometimes they already tell you what it is anyway. So you don't even have to guess at what it is. So once you see this, BPMN is not necessarily what comes into mind. Remember, I told you that there are specific shapes. I can show you the shapes a bit later. But once you see these different functions, already you know it's cross-functional, because the student has a function, the administration, registrar, all of that, they all have different functions. So once you see this, you know cross-functional. What's another word for cross-functional?
Swim lane. Swimming lane.
You guys are cool. All right, awesome, brilliant. So that's another word. So sometimes someone will just tell you, could you do a swim lane map for me? You already know that they're talking about cross-functional, or you can tell them, I'm going to do like a swim lane. Would you like it? Would you like a swim lane process map? And they're like, fine, no problem. So I created a swim lane process map for that particular process in order to capture the sequence and the activities and all of that. So a lot of people use swim lanes, but it's technically both of them are technically correct. Don't. So it's either a cross-functional process map or a swim lane map. Brilliant. Okay, so since you guys are so good, I am feeling very emboldened to ask you guys one more question. What's missing? Just look at it and tell me, what do you think is missing here?
Ending, finishing. I don't know.
You guys are too much. Maybe we should even close and end this now. Yes, every process has to have a start and an end. If it doesn't, then no. So yeah, brilliant. You guys have added ginger to my to my to the session. Awesome. Now, you know the way they say, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. In order to create a process map, there's some work you need to do first. Okay, you don't just go and start creating a map. How, remember, I keep saying as a BA, we're not the custodians of the information. We get information from our stakeholders and we use that to do our work. So there has to be some pre-work that goes into preparation of business processes. So the first one is, what kind of process do you guys want me to do for you? What kind of process, or what kind of process is needed? Another thing, as a BA, a lot of times they don't tell you what to do. One of the best illustration someone told me is that a BA is like a plumber. Yeah, someone just comes and says, I don't know what the problem is, my sink is leaking. Yeah, and you just come and you look through, and then no one tells you, oh, use the screwdriver or use the spanner or use this one. Because of your knowledge, you have a tool bag, a toolkit, and then you already bring stuff out and start to use. So when you go into a meeting and they're already telling you, oh, this, I wish there was a way we could, we need to be able to document what this process is, because until we know what this process is, then we know the solution. The business improvement, they're like, okay, we need to know what the current process is so we can plan how to make it better. You already go like, oh, no problem, I'll create a process map for you. It's fine. They don't have to tell you, oh, go and create a process map. You're like, oh no, that's what is needed here. You guys need a process map, right? You need to visualize what the process is in order to see where all the gaps are, in order to see where the strength is, the weaknesses and bottlenecks and all of that. I'm your BA. I got you. I'll do a process map for you. Do you understand? So, but in order to do that, you need to identify what the activities involved in that process are. And in order to do that, you need to find out who are your stakeholders. So whose process are we documenting? Yeah, who are the subject matter experts, or even the cost? Are we documenting the customer, the clerk, like the HR person? Like, what process are we documenting? Once you identify what the process is, then you can identify what the activities are. Once you know who the stakeholders are, then you now go to them and say, okay, could you let me know what your activities are? And they start telling you, and you start writing it down. So this thing I'm telling you about taking notes, it's very important. You need to be able to take notes. As they're talking to you, you're writing it down. Oh, okay. So you when they call, so what happened? How do you answer? Oh, we have a script that we follow. Oh, that's good. There's a script for complaints or returns. Oh, we have a different script for each one. Okay, so can we go through the process you go through for the complaints? If someone calls with a complaint, no problem. Awesome. So they call and then you ask them for their details. How do you verify that this person is the right person? Oh, we have security questions we ask them. Brilliant. All right. So you now write. So you have to document what the process is first. Yeah. So again, like I said, identify what the process is, number one, and what activities make up that process. It could be with a system, it could be cross-functional, different business units, all of that. You just need to drill down and make sure you identify who your stakeholders are, and then go to them and find out what the process is and what steps make up that process. Now, another thing you need to understand is why. Why are we creating this process map? Because if you don't know the why, then it will be very difficult for you to know what process map or what you need to capture. So the first thing, like, remember the example I gave, I'm like, oh, we need to be able to see what the current process is so that we can give solutions on how to make it better. So once you know the why, then you already know, oh, we need to capture what the process is so we can use it to train new people that are coming in. Oh, brilliant. Then you already know, once you know the process is, it gives you an idea of how to structure the map, what to call the map, where the start and the end is, all the things you need to do to make the map. It already gives you an idea as to why. And then remember, it helps you with the level of detail. If someone just says, I just want to know, just tell me what the process is. They just want a high level map. But if they're like, I really want to know all the different actors and what they do, you're going to maybe a level 1 or a level 2 process map. They want more detail. Then again, it's a very simple thing, but so many people fail to name what the process is. And obviously the name is usually driven by what the purpose is or what activity the task is supposed to capture. So it's usually a verb. So it could be a complaints process map. It could be an application process map. It could be it could be 101 a purchase process. It could be loads of different things. Refund. So once you give it a name, you already know what the purpose is. It helps you with the purpose, and then it also helps you with documentation. Once you get known as a BA who names and documents, who properly labels and titles the artifacts they create, already people want to work with you because they won't be guessing. It sometimes in a role you do multiple process maps. If you don't name them, how will people start? They'll not start looking at the different tasks to be able to identify what the process is. It's confusing. So please, it's a little thing, but it's a huge thing. Name your process maps. Always, always, always do that. And then, like I said, determine the scope. There has to be a start and an end. You have to find out what those what the trigger is or what the event is and what the end point is, so you know where to end and what to capture. So these are things that you have to do as before you even start working on your process map. So now you've done all of that, we're going to go a bit into the, remember I told you we're going to do a bit of practical work depending on how much time we have. Just show you how to use Visio to create some of these things. So again, I said that here we use Visio, but there are loads of people who use many different tools. The amount of people online that love PowerPoint is just truly baffling to me. Some people are like, man, just give me PowerPoint any day. I like it. I use it. I like Visio a lot. So some people use Figma. I'll go through a list of some of the different tools for you, but then you choose your tool. Sometimes your organization already has the tool they use, and then so you kind of use that tool. But if they don't, then you can use the one that works best for you or the most convenient for you. Remember to pick the particular symbols you need. Okay, there's some basic symbols that are universal that once you use them, people know. But sometimes, again, some stakeholders are not technical, they don't really know. So it's very important that you write what the process is there. And sometimes you may even have to talk them through it. They may not really understand. But for you and for anyone who's technical and for anyone who's taking up your work, it's important that you follow some of those basic, best practice things, so use the basic symbols, use your connectors properly, label them, use the right tenses. So again, we're going to see all of that, but the text in your process map always has to be a verb, so continuous verb. So for example, the example we're using for a customer call, the first thing there will be start. The next thing will be calls, customer service. So it starts with a verb, as in, and it continuous tense verb. So calls or submits application or purchases something. So it always has to start with a verb, and then reviews the application, rejects the application, or approves the application. So whatever it is that you're using, the text you're using within the symbols, you always make sure that you use the right words. And again, you don't want anything verbose. You're literally talking about 2 words, 3 words max. Try as much as possible to be very succinct, just short words that depict what that task or activity is. And iterate. Remember, this is not your information. You're capturing it, you're modeling it, and you're mapping it out. So you got the information from somebody. Once you've drawn it out, you have to go back to them to say, again, like I keep saying, why people have issues with process maps is that they jump the gun. Before you start your process map, write out the steps and verify the steps with the person. So remember how you have your requirements elicitation call? you have your process map. It's not called a process map elicitation call, but if I want to, then that's what I'll use. It's a requirement, basically. It's actually a form of requirement elicitation because you're getting information from the person. So you literally sit down with whoever you've identified as a critical stakeholder or actor in your process map, and you get them to work out their steps. And as they're working it out, you're telling them, oh, okay, so the customer calls you, fine. Yes. And then what happens next? And they tell you and you write it down. What happens next? You literally write out the steps and you verify the steps to the person. Okay, what if they don't want to do this? Oh, okay, then it's a yes or a no. So, okay, if they say yes, then I move them to the finance department. If they say no, then I look for an alternative for them. So that you already know that there's a decision point there. So you now map out, okay, yes goes this way, no goes this way. And then you keep writing it down. Once you're done writing it down, you verify it with that person to say, this is what I've captured. Is that okay? Have I left anything out? Is there anything else you want to add? Oh, I forgot this particular step. Oh, great. Or maybe you're going through it and the person is right, and then you identify that there's some information that the person said. Oh, okay. So if the person says that they want a refund, what do they always want a refund? Oh, no, sometimes they say they don't want a refund, or they just want to an exchange. So even though they didn't highlight it, because you've written it out, you are actually able to say, oh, there's a decision here. This is not a straightforward thing. There are different alternatives. He could say yes, he could say no, he could go this way, he could go that way. So even though the person that is telling you didn't really highlight it, but because you're going through the steps, you're like, oh, okay, does this always happen this way? And they're like, oh, no, it doesn't happen that way. Or sometimes this way, it happens this way. Oh, fantastic. So if it happens that way, what do you do? And then you now you draw another gateway or decision point, and then you go through. And then once you're done, oh, that's the end. Oh, yeah, that's the end. The call has ended. We've resolved the issue. End. Okay. Or no, once I'm done with that, I pass it over to my manager who now needs to check that I've done the right thing. Oh, okay, there's another actor, there's another swim lane. You now move. Okay, so what does the manager do? I'm not exactly sure what he does. Like, okay, fine, no problem. You now call the manager. Can I have a few minutes of your time? I'm working on a process map for this particular project, blah, 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 blah. Oh, cool, I have 15 minutes. All right, so I had a call with the clerk, and then this is what they sent. And he says that at this point, they pass it over to you. Oh, yes. So what happens? Okay, I get a notification by email to say that there is something that needs my attention. Once I open it, I see this, and I realize that it needs my approval. Do you always approve it? Oh, no, sometimes I don't approve it. Oh, fantastic. So if you don't approve it, what happens? Another decision point. Oh, yeah, some other times I approve it, and then that's it. Oh, that's it. And the customer is, so that process has ended. So even though it ended, the clerk says it ended, because the clerk says my end is that I move it over to my line manager. The process may have ended for the clerk, but the process hasn't ended. So you now continue with the next stakeholder until you get to the end of the process. And then once you're done, you go back to them and say, okay, this is what I've been able to capture. Maybe at the end of that, you just say, okay, let me just tidy this up. I hope you don't mind. We can either set up another quick call, or I can send you an email with what I've done, kind of thing. If it's a physical thing, it's better to go physically and see them. But if it's virtual, you can send them an email. And then you send them an email and say, oh, this was what I've been able to capture. Does this represent the process? Does it represent the complete picture or the complete process? And then they tell you, oh, yes, no, oh, you forgot something. Oh, yeah. And then they'll now tell you. So once they tell you, yes, this is the complete process, you have your process. You're sorted. It's written, you've reiterated it, and that's it. Then you use that written document, and then you now use that to choose your tool, use your symbols, and then create your process map. And then once you created your process map, you still go back to the stakeholders to say, based off of our discussions on this process, I've created this process map. Could you, review just to make sure I've been able to properly capture everything? Sometimes they may not be able to do it by themselves. If you know your stakeholder, you know that this person works best with a meeting. And like, can I set up a meeting with you to go through, the process map? And then you fix a meeting with them and you talk them through, yes, no, everything is properly labeled, and they look through if it's fine. They're like, oh, awesome, this is brilliant. it's fine. Oh, no. Okay, I think we missed one particular aspect. Oh, great. All right, could you tell me what it is? And then they tell you what it is. Sometimes if it's not something that is too complex, you can do it on the actual process map because you've already created it, so you can just make the changes on the process map. And then once they're done, you get them to sign off on it. So if you follow some of these best practice steps, this would be such a breeze for you. Okay. Like I said, these are some of the different tools. I highlighted Visio because I like Visio, and then we use Visio here. So, highlighted, boldened, underlined, all of that. But then, like I said, people like PowerPoint. There's Lucidchart, Figma, Miro, Draw.io. IBM has this mega thing that they use now that is really cool, but it's very expensive. And yeah, that's for another day. And there are many others as well. So these are just some of the tools. And then Visio, I just put an image of Visio for you. So Visio is so cool. They have templates for so many different things. Like, I don't understand why people want to use PowerPoint. PowerPoint actually has a lot of templates as well, but nothing near Visio. I'll show you as well. So these are just some of the different things they have the template for. They've literally done some of the things for you, so you can easily just take it and amend it, and you don't have to start from scratch. So anything that makes my work easier is 10s across the board on my book. So yeah, that's Visio. And then remember, I told you these are some of the shapes. The more you use it, the more you'll get used to it. But these are just some of the decision. Shape is a diamond. A process is like a rectangle. Data is, so all of that. Start finish is usually an overall shape, all those sorts of things. So they're just some basic shapes that are commonly used for process mapping. Okay. And I added this here just an extra. So Excel, obviously Visio is Microsoft, and Excel, Word, PowerPoint, they're all their products as well. So they've done it in such a way that you can use an Excel template and put in the different steps, and it will create a cross-functional chart, flow chart for you, a cross-functional diagram for you. So it's really awesome. If you have like the latest version, I'm not sure, I think it's 20, it's even after 2013, like it's some of the newer ones. If you have that, if you go to Excel, it will actually ask you, do you want to create a sheet for what do they call it, a cross-functional flow chart? Or if you go to open a cross-functional flow chart, it will ask you, do you have an Excel sheet pre-populated that you want us to integrate or merge or use to create a diagram? So Microsoft, they're always going above and beyond. It's really cool. Yeah, Office 365, sorry, is right there. So it's with Office 365 that you get that functionality. It's really, really cool. So that's just a little tidbit. Okay, few more tips. Like I said, the BAs, we're just custodians of the information. We don't own the information. So your process map, or the person who owns the process, is the stakeholder or the subject matter expert that you're working with to get the process. So always validate with them. They know what you're doing, so you're not bothering them. Do you understand? So just make sure, it's so much easier to go back to validate with people and iterate with them than to have a process to say, yes, this is the process, and then you present it and people are like, no. If you do that, you could always say, I validated it with the SME. That's their process, it's not mine. Do you understand? So most of the time though, that once you validate it with them, it's fine. You don't have any issues. So always remember. Yes, I talked about the corresponding text. A lot of people miss this part out. And the thing about it, apart from the fact that it helps you create the process map, there are some processes that are so complex that you might not be able to capture every single thing on the process map, even though your process map is detailed. There are some process maps that are just so robust and just so detailed. So sometimes you may need a document as like an accompanying document to fill out some of the parts that you are not able to, some of the complexities or some of the words. Remember, the boxes are really small. You may not be able to put everything there. You may need to explain, or highlight some things. So even though you have the visual process map that is easy to see how it flows, you're able to see the sequence flow, you may need corresponding text to explain some things. So again, like I said, if your project is really, or the process is really complex, this really helps. So please, apart from the fact that you needed to create the process map itself, that's not what this is. This is an accompanying document that basically explains or kind of highlights some of the complexities you were not able to capture. Remember, it's a visual it's a visual tool. So there are some things you may not be able to put in there in just a few words, so the text is literally, this is the process map, and then this is so let's say the process map is called the complaints, or let's say data migration, whatever, data integration or something. Then you now have your data integration document that goes hand in hand with your process map. So sometimes it's really, really very important. I've found it to be invaluable a lot. So sometimes your stakeholders are asking questions. Okay, what about this? What about that? We're not able to put it on the process map, but we were able to include it in the documentation. If you go to page such and such and such, that information is captured there. So that way you make sure that you cover everything you're supposed to. And then, like I said, keep it simple. It's a small box. There's so much you cannot put in there. You literally have to be very, very brief and put in, just the as simple, as you can, just put in the information you can, and then start somewhere. I was working with some interns, and they had issues. A particular group had issues. We had installed it with Visio. We had installed it for them, so Visio wasn't working. And then one of them just went to Lucidchat, and she just went and created something. And then when I was looking through, I was like, so I thought you guys had issues. She was like, yeah, I just went to see what other tool I could use, because she needed to practice. So if you have Visio, I know some of you even have Visio already. Some of you have PowerPoint. Some of you have, whatever it is, when you get it, just start. Don't be intimidated by it. It's actually not, if you look at it, it's a new tool, but the more you use it, you just find out that it's easy. It's Microsoft. A lot of things are drag and drop. So once you just learn how to use it, it's easy. So please don't be intimidated by any of the applications. Pick it up, just play around with it. It's yours anyways on your system. So it's not like Azure DevOps that the project is sharing that you're not sure of what to do. This one is literally yours. So whatever you do, delete it, start all over again, play around with it, do what you need to do. Okay. Yeah, so this, again, like I told you about the loads and loads and loads of material on business process map and prep major. Please go and do additional research, find out a bit more about it. This is just the theoretical part. I'm going to show you how to create a process map on Visio, but before I do, I want to just pause for questions. Hopefully you guys have questions for me. So Gladys, go ahead.
Also, while you were explaining, you mentioned SME, but I didn't get the full meaning of SME.
Okay, an SME is a subject matter expert. So it just means who is the stakeholder that is best positioned to give you the information you need. So if, for example, you're working with, again, let's say data migration, or let's say customer service, whatever, maybe you have loads of different people that are customer service agents, but you either have someone who is has been there the longest, or maybe is the manager, or maybe you can even go to your project manager and say, who is the best person? There are like 10 different customer agents. Which one has the knowledge I need for this particular project? And they'll tell you, oh, this person, it may not even be the head. It may be someone that has been there for the longest and knows things that the head doesn't know, simply because they do it every day. So like, go and meet this person. This person is your subject matter expert. They know this thing like the back of their hand. They can do it in their sleep. So when you hear SME regarding whichever domain it is, that person is your subject matter expert. It's just a quick way of saying who has the most information in whatever topic you're asking for. So that's just what it means. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Jack, go ahead.
So just a quick one. So in relation to like the SharePoint that we've created, right?
Yeah.
Which part of that would require a business process?
It could be everything. For example, let's say which one now. Okay, so have you gotten the requirements for Sprint 2?
Yes.
Okay, so there's a requirement that talks about oh, let me see now. Which one is best? Okay, yeah. Okay, we can use this one. We can use a requirement that talks about sprint reports and sprint demo and sprint review, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. So that particular one, now you can pick that out and say, what is the process for how the SMEs and how the SM Scrum Masters will create the demo, and then for all the other roles to add their presentation. So, or when they upload it onto SharePoint, what's the process of people either uploading documents or like as long as it's a repeatable, identifiable process, anything can be a process. You wake up in the morning, you can say, what's the process for me getting off my bed and getting ready for work and going to work? So end to end, the start is when I wake up in the morning and the end is when I get to work. What's that process? I need to map out what that process is. You wake up in the morning, you have your shower. Am I hungry? Do I have time for breakfast? Yes, I have breakfast. What's the breakfast? Blah, blah, blah. No, I don't have enough time. I jump into my car, or if my car is not available, maybe I take public transport. So yes, is my car available? Then you take a car. No, my car is not available. Then I take public transport. And then what's the journey on both sides? What happens if I take my car? What happens if so anything can be a process as long as it's a repeatable series of identifiable tasks and activities. You can make a process out of anything. So you just have to find out, where does that process start and where does that process end? And then you just map it out, you model it. So you go from step to step to step to step. Once you're done, then you now create a map with everything. So someone can see visually, this is Jack's process for, or these are the SMEs process. Keep saying SMEs. These are the Scrum Masters process for creating a sprint report, and then and the team members being able to upload or amend or add information, and this is how it's presented, and once it's presented, this is where it's saved. So it could be anything at all. You can make a process as long as it's repeatable, is a series of events, and it has a start and an end, and there's value at the end of it. So what do you get at the end of it? If it's something valuable, then that's a process. So I hope that helps. Yeah,
Thank you.
Brilliant. Awesome. Any other questions? Nope. All right. We're going to we have just a few more minutes. So in these few more minutes, I'm going to show you, remember I told you I was going to show you a use case diagram, and then we'll try and see if we can do swim lanes real quick. Felicia, no problem. That's fine. Go ahead. Let's see the use case one first. For the use case, I'll just show you what I've done, but for the swim lanes, we'll create one together. Hopefully you guys, when it's time to create the swim lane one, give me information, because I need information to be able to create it. So you guys should be on the ball. We'll create it really quickly. I'll answer your questions, show you what it looks like on Visio, and yeah. Okay, so Abisola, go ahead.
Hi, Uzo, sorry. I wanted to ask, I'm not sure if I missed it, but in terms of like gateways, I've been looking at gateways and I'm not sure how to understand the different gateways. Would you be going through that with us?
Yes, I will. So for gateways, also think of them as decision points. So it's just a decision point. It's in as you're mapping your process, there comes a point where the user or the actor has to make a decision, yes or no. If they say yes, they'll follow a particular path or a particular gateway, or they'll go past the gateway. Let's use that. And then if they say no, they'll follow a different one. So there is a duality of parts that happen. It's almost like it diverges. It's no longer straight. So because of this decision they have made, they can either do A or they can do B. So that's just called the decision point. And a lot of times processes have them. So yes, no, and then because it's depicted as a diamond. So that shaped like a diamond, and then you use a yes and I'll show you some of that. So that's basically what a gateway is. Yeah.
Thank you, thank you.
You are very welcome. All right, people, let us do use cases first. Like I said, I'll just quickly show you what it looks like, and then we'll go into creating a cross-functional diagram. Okay, cool. So, like I said, for some of these, this is just something I created initially. So I just want to kind of show you what it looks like. So some of these things you already know because you create, you've already created like user stories and all of that. But so this is the supporting documentation I was telling you about. So basically the use cases we're creating is to map out the following processes. Okay, so basically a council, just to give you a bit of background, a council wants to move their paper documents. Remember, council has the birth records, death records, housing records. It has all the people that live in that council. They have all their records from years and years and years ago, even before there was technology, computers and all of that. So remember, we're talking about years and years and years ago. So a lot of councils have a lot of paper documents, and then you're not talking about people that have lived and died, people that have come into that council and people that have left that council. So we're talking about hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of records. So this is a council that says, we want to improve our processes. We have a lot of records that are still paper records. We want to be able to digitize everything and move everything onto the system so people can search for their records, marriage certificate, driving license. Just think about the huge amount of voting records, the huge amount of documents a council has on one person. And then maybe someone has lived in various councils. So that record is replicated how many different times. So this is a council that wanted to improve their business processes, and they said we want to move everything onto a record. So now not only are they working to move all their papers onto a portal, a document repository, they also want a process whereby the user will be able to either view their record on a system or request it. What happens when they request it? What happens if, the system is remember, this is hundreds and thousands of records. So they now want a situation where while they're still digitizing it, they may be asking for a record that isn't digitized. So there's so many different use cases. Is this person registered? Is their record digitized? What if their record is still a hard copy? What happens? So there's so many scenarios. Remember, I told you use cases is what are the different scenarios? What are different uses? What are the different scenarios that can come out of this? So that's just the backstory. Now for this, there are three actors. There's the user, there's the warehouse personnel, and there's the courier. So the warehouse personnel comes into play if the record that is being asked for isn't digitized and it's still a paper copy. So the warehouse personnel has to go and open boxes and go to their storage and find out the paper or the record that user wants, create a copy, give it to the courier, and the courier delivers it to the user. If the paper is already digitized, then the user just gets it off online and they're fine. So they're preconditioned. For them to be able to use the system, they have to be logged in, and then the actor has to be authorized. So I can't use Shadrach's, I can't view Shadrach's document. I can't view Gladys's document. Adeola can't view Uzo's document. So the person has to be authorized to view it. So these are the preconditions. And then we now talk about the first use case. So the user logs on. Remember, we're not talking about logged on anymore because it's a precondition. And we're not talking about security questions because the precondition is that they're authorized. So the person searches for the record and they see their record. End of use case. That's it. You just you're already logged onto the system. You do a search for your marriage certificate. It's digitized, so it appears. You see your record. That's the use case that has ended. The next one, you do a basic search. You didn't find it the first time. You use an advanced search for adding more information or metadata. You find it. The third one, or you do a search and you don't find it, or you find that it's still a paper copy, then you put in a request for it to be scanned, and then the warehouse personnel scans it and gives you. So these are all, they're different use cases. That's just what this is, just different use cases. And then again, they're council. So data protection is important. So I've been in the council for more than 7 years, or however long GDPR says, and I want the council to forget my information or delete my information. I can choose. The council will tell me, maybe at the end of 7 years, the council sends a message to me to say, do you want us to keep your information or do you want us to delete it? I want the council to keep my record, or I want the council to delete it. So these are just a few of the scenarios or use cases that show interactions between these three actors only. These are the people we're talking about, and these are the use cases. So having said that, this is now the visual representation of that use case diagram. So remember the first one, you have the user who is authorized, and then this is the system, the portal that we're talking about. Remember, he's authorized and he's logged in, and he does a search for the record and he sees his record. This is a visual representation of that first use case. Then this is the second one. This is the third one. So now the third one includes the warehouse personnel. Remember, we added the warehouse personnel. So the user searches for the record using metadata. They don't find it, so it goes down, and then they search using additional metadata. Then they don't find it, so they request for the record to be scanned, and then the system sends the request to the system or to the email of the warehouse personnel, and they receive the request for scanning. They scan the record and then they send it to the system, via the system to the user, and they're able to view their record. So all those different use cases are represented here in all these different use case diagrams. Yeah. So that's basically what that is. Yeah. So remember accompanying documentation and your use case. Cool. Any questions?
Yes, please.
Yes. Okay. I can't see who that is, but go ahead and ask
Shadrach.
a question. Hi, Shadrach. Please ask a question.
My question is, so for every use case, you have to create a use case diagram. Right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
So each diagram captures one use case. So it's a use case diagram. So if you identified 5, then you have 5 different use cases. Remember, a use case is what are the different scenarios that the actor interacts with the system. So remember, there's a start and an end. So this process has started and it has ended. But because this is a use case thing, we don't have start and end there. We just go straight into interaction with the system. So once you see this box here, you know that it's a system. That's how it's depicted in use case diagrams. The actor is usually depicted as a stick figure, And then all these bubbles are the different tasks or activities. And oh, sorry, this is usually there's supposed to be an arrow pointing to show this isn't. I apologize. This was when I was still practicing. I just had it really handy, so I pulled it up. But there's supposed to be arrows pointing to the direction of the movement. So that way you know that there should be an arrow here. So you know that it's going from the actor here. There should be an arrow here. So you know that it's going down, or there should be an arrow from here. So for example, if he searches and he finds what he's looking for, he views it and it ends. He doesn't even need to, it just goes straight. So it's all those different use cases that are captured here. Yeah. And then in order to, so this is Visio. I'll open it. Should I? It's fine. Let me show you the beauty of Visio. They should pay me for my what's happening. Okay. So you open Visio, okay, and then you go to new. So this is your Visio. Oh, this is a use case diagram. So it has already pulled it out for me because I used it. But this is your first your new page on Visio. Once you come to new, if you don't have any diagrams available, so it opens this page for you, the blank one or a basic diagram, and then obviously if you've used anyone, it has that for you. But then if you click here, you have loads of different what do they call it, different templates to use. I usually go to flowcharts because that's what I use most of the time. So on that flowchart, you already have your cross-functional flowchart. It has all these templates, and these are just the basic ones it gives you. And if you're working on a data base, it has loads of templates for you. So instead of doing this as well, like I said, it's already pulled out UML for me. But let's say I want a UML templates. I can just search for UML template, and these are loads and loads and loads of UML templates that it has available for me. If I want cross-functional, I can request for it here, and then it shows me the different cross-functional templates it has, and so on and so forth. So let us go to our cross-functional flowchart. This is the second one I wanted to show you, the swim lane. Oh yeah, so again, even I haven't looked at, but look at the BPML one. So if you open this one as well, it will show you some of the BPMN. It's already pre-populated. So let me create that. So the first thing it does is that it shows you all the different shapes. So all these are BPML shapes. So if you probably won't notice this, but in a BPML diagram, the start is a circle rather than an oval shape. In a normal flow chart, the what do they call it? The start and the end buttons are oval. I'll show you, but these are circles. And then you have your gateway here, and you have all the different sequences. And then if you want more quick shapes, it shows you more shapes. It lists all the different shapes that are here for you. It has loads and loads and loads and loads and loads and loads. So most of the time you don't have to search, like it's you have more than enough to create whatever process map you want to. But the one we want is the cross-functional. So even though we are beyond time, if you guys don't mind, because this is supposed to end in 10 o'clock, do you guys mind waiting another like 15 or so minutes for us to look through the cross-functional process map?
Yeah, sure.
All right, brilliant. All right, cool. Thanks, guys. I try to be fast, but like I said, imagine if we were doing user journey map. There was no way. It was too much information. Okay, so this is the cross-functional flowchart, and you just click on create, and it already populated for you. So remember, this is your swim lane. It's called the swim lane diagram. So these are the different swim lanes. So depending on what you're creating, you can populate this. So remember, I said that we're going to create something. Do you guys want it to be participatory and then we'll quickly write out the steps? Or do you want to be, what do you guys want? I like writing the steps first. It makes it so much easier. So do you guys want us to capture the steps first?
Yep.
Awesome. All right. So what process are we going to capture here?
And you said it could be any process, right? So it could be like ordering food or...
The only criteria I'm asking is that it has to be more than 2. Even if they're 2 actually, because cross-function is just 2, but it will be nicer if we have maybe 2 or 3 different parties or actors. So
could it be like a restaurant, like walking for a restaurant? Like
brilliant. All right. So what is it? A restaurant ordering?
Yeah, that's it. It's like restaurants sitting down, eating, and then leaving.
Oh, brilliant. Okay. Fantastic. So what is your trigger? What is a trigger?
Steps into restaurant. Is that too many words?
Okay, customer. Okay, so you remember the swim lane
enters restaurant. Oh, yeah.
No, so the swim lane, for the swim lane you have, okay, so let's highlight our different swim lanes. So we have the customer. Who else is the actor here?
Receptionist.
Receptionist. Okay. All right, so we have a receptionist. Who else do we have?
A waiter.
And then we have a waiter. Okay. Who else?
Chef.
And the chef. Brilliant. All right, fantastic. Cool. All right, so those are our impromptu swim lanes. So the customer, what verb are we putting here?
Enters restaurant.
Okay. Enters restaurant. Just okay, enters restaurant. Let's do that. All right, cool. And then what happens?
Then acknowledged by waiter and taken to seated or seated.
Brilliant. Seated seated at table. Let's leave all the details, whether it's table for 2 or not. Okay, what happens?
And then waiter takes order.
How does the waiter know that he's supposed to take the order?
We'll see the
menu.
Customer.
Say again. So once the receptionist seats the person, what happens? Because
gives them the menu.
Okay, so the receptionist, is it reception that gives the customer the menu? So
no, the waiter.
Okay, the waiter. So how does the waiter know to come and give the customer the menu?
Because the customer sits down.
Yeah, so the customer sits down with the receptionist. Then what happens?
And it walks to the customer.
Okay, would the receptionist need to inform the waiter that someone is seated and needs their attention?
Yeah.
Okay, so can we say informs waiter of new customer? Let's say that. All right, brilliant. All right, cool. So now what does the waiter do? He's been informed. Okay, so receives info. Then what does he do?
Gives menu.
Gives. Who does he give the menu to?
Customer.
Yep. Gives customer menu. Okay. Let me move this out of the way. Okay, cool. So what happens?
The customer.
Then the customer. Yeah, sorry, go on.
There you go, Apishola.
So customer places an order.
When the waiter gives the customer the menu, what does the customer do?
Reviews the menu, maybe.
Okay, so receives
the menu.
Let's just say looks
through the menu.
Okay, and then what do they do? looks through menu. What happens next?
Places an order
Okay. Places an order with who?
with the waiter.
Okay, so with waiter, and then what happens?
Waiter passes the order to chef.
Okay, so the waiter receives the order, right?
Yeah,
Then he passes it to who?
chef.
The chef.
To chef, okay. And then what happens with the chef?
Receives the order.
Brilliant. Receives order. What does he do next?
Processes the order.
I'm sorry, say again?
Process the order.
Processes the order. Okay, let's say cooks.
Cooks
Cooks
the
the
order.
order.
Yeah, cooks the order. Okay. Or prepares the order. Let's say prepares the order.
Okay.
I know how he does it. So prepares order. Then what happens?
And the food is cooked.
Okay, when the food is okay, prepares the order, and then once he's done preparing the order, what happens?
Sends a
does
message to the
he-
waiter.
Okay. The waiter. Sends the order. Can he send the order to the waiter?
A notification to the waiter.
Notifies
How does he do that?
Notify a bell, maybe a
They will have a
bell.
way of communicating.
So notifies waiter of what?
Meal is ready.
Order.
Yes.
Readiness of the meal.
Okay. Notifies waiter that, let's just say, meal is ready. Okay. Then what happens?
Waiter receives order.
Brilliant. Waiter, no, this is the waiter. So receives
order.
Receives order. And then what does he do with the order?
I'm sorry, there's a repetition. The waiter has received order twice. So
Okay.
I think we need to change order.
Okay, receives prepared
order.
Meal. Receives prepared meal.
Meal. Okay, brilliant. See, we didn't come to play. All right, cool. All right, receive prepared meal. Then what happens?
Brings it to the
Delivers the meal.
Yeah.
To who?
The customer.
Customer.
Awesome. Then what happens after this?
Customer receives.
Customer receives the meal.
Okay, so that's a customer. So receives. Can we say prepared meal, since that's what we're prepared meal? And when he's done, what happens after this?
Eat the meal.
Then the
comes the meal and wipes his mouth. Eats the meal. Okay, and then what happens?
Then the waiter asks if there's anything else.
Okay, let's skip.
Reviews the meal.
Let's skip that.
I
So
just wanted
after
to ask,
that,
actually.
say, actually,
pays for the meal.
No. Okay, so yeah, okay, let's skip that. Let's go, because if no, we'll stay here longer. So let's skip that. But you guys are in a real scenario that would definitely be part of the process. So please ignore me.
Right.
I'm just cutting to the chase. Okay, so after this, then what happens? So this is a level 1 process. Remember, so we're not in level 2. All those things will come in. So let's just keep it to level 1. Okay, so what else happens here?
So the customer pays after eating.
How does he know to pay?
Oh, the waiter will bring the bill.
Okay. Is it the waiter that gives him the bill, or is it the receptionist? Who gives him the meal?
It's the waiter.
Okay, so how does the waiter know it's time for him to send the meal?
Maybe the customer signals to the waiter.
So let's just say informs waiter meal is done. Okay. Then what happens? Someone said already, waiter does what?
If you say inform waiter meal is done,
delivers the bill.
That sounds like
think I don't know if we have to change them.
No. Go ahead. Tell me what you
Or
think.
ask
If it's correct, we'll change it. If not, we can discuss why it's.
Well, inform waiter that's ready to I don't know, make payment.
Yeah.
Or
Okay.
could we
So
say ask for
normally,
bill?
yeah. So normally, remember, this is like a level 1. So let's just assume that based on this level, once the meal is done, he's ready to go. No appetizer. I know if we wanted to do a level 2 or level 3, we do ask for appetizer and all of that. But let's just say once the meal is done, he's done with the meal. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
After informing waiter, what do we do next?
Ask for bill.
Okay. So who asked for the bill? Does he ask for the bill, or does the waiter? Whose task is it? We need to identify whose task.
Customer.
Okay, so informs wait. Okay, so then maybe we can say that him asking for the bill is the indication that he's done. Okay.
Yeah.
So he eats the meal, then he asks for a bill, rather than say he informs the waiter that he's done and then now asks for the bill. So it's basically one task. He can basically say, "I just want the bill. I'm done with the meal, so I'm asking for my bill."
Ask for the bill, yeah.
So asks waiter
For the bill.
for bill. Okay. Then what happens?
He go else.
Say again?
Go.
Delivers the bill.
Deliver the bill.
Okay, so delivers. Yeah, let's use delivers. I'm sure there's a better word for this. Let's just say gives.
Presents the bill.
Presents the bill. Okay, let's do that. Awesome. I like that. Presents the bill. And what happens?
Then maybe
customer makes payment.
Processes the payment.
Who processes it?
The waiter.
Receptionist.
The receptionist probably.
Because to be
Or the
fair, the
waiter.
receptionist is not usually in most
Can't be receptionist.
restaurants.
Okay, so who processes the bill?
I think the
waiter.
waiter, 'cause, yeah.
Okay, presents bill to customer. Okay, receives the bill. Receives the bill. And what happens?
Payment.
Pays the bill. Okay. And pays the bill to waiter. Receive the bill from, it's fine. We'll know who he's receiving it from, but this is just as an aside. By the time we're doing this, we won't need to highlight from waiter to waiter, but it's good to put it down here because it helps. But yeah. Okay, so pays bill to waiter, then what happens?
The waiter confirms that the payment's been processed.
Confirms receipt of payment. Then what happens?
Customers review.
Customers review.
The waiter clears the table.
Okay, so he confirms payment. Then what happens?
The customer will go home.
Customer leaves.
No, after the payment, he clears the table because customer is done eating.
Okay, so let's say it starts and ends with the customer. So once he confirms the payment, then what happens? How does the customer know that the waiter has confirmed the payment?
He gives the receipts to the customer.
Thank you.
Receipts to the customer.
Gives receipts to customer. Then what does this customer do?
Customer receives the receipt.
Receives the receipt.
Thank you. Receives the receipt and what happens?
Exits the restaurant.
Leave. Thank the waiter.
Exits the restaurant.
Brilliant. Yeah. Absolutely awesome. All right, fantastic. So now let's move this process. We've confirmed everything. This is the level we want. Now let's go to our cross-functional diagram. Okay, so firstly, this is the page that opens once you start a new cross-functional diagram, and these are just some things for you to pay attention to. So it gives you this as a default, But if you want to change the direction, you can actually change the direction of your, okay, no, sorry. You can actually change the direction of your swim lane to vertical rather than horizontal. But yeah, I don't like doing that. I prefer left to right rather than top to bottom. Then it gives you these separators, swim lanes, all of that. So based off of our, actually let's start from the beginning. So remember, I told you it's good to name your diagram. So what should we name this?
Restaurant process.
Restaurant porter.
Restaurant what?
Porter.
It's not a portal. It's actually a physical thing. So restaurant
order process, something.
Okay. Could maybe say customer service process? Would that be a good? Is that a good representation, or is that
restaurant customers process or something?
Ordering. How about ordering process?
Yes, that's what I
Yeah.
said. Restaurants ordering.
All right, let's do that. Awesome. It gives you this. So if, for example, you're working on a process, a project that has multiple phases, you can use that, but we're not. We just have one phase, so I don't think we need that. Again, naming. So this is a page one. It gives you page one as a default. You can rename it. So let's put our restaurant customer
Hey, stop it. Stop
ordering
it.
process. Well, another thing some people do as well is that they write who created this. Very good for posterity. You don't want some next person taking credit for your work. So I worked really hard to do this. It's my work. So this is version 1. So we can say it's version 01. As people are iterating it and changing it, you will see that this can become version 02 and all of that. Something else that is really good to add would be your date. So these are just some of the, I keep removing my name. Yeah, okay. So these are just some of the things to add just here, but a lot of times I like making this bolder, just to give it point of, place to make sure that everyone knows what this is. All these other info is just extra. I can put this in the middle. Again, if you know how to use Word and all of that, it's very intuitive. But these are your tools here. So your default is the pointer tool, and it just basically, obviously, what it says on the box. This is the pointer tool, basically. If once you're done creating, we'll go to create, but there's a connector that you can use as well, and then there's text, because a lot of times you may need to put text on it, but there are other ways to do these, but this is just a simple, quick way to get it done. All right, so now that we've done that, this is, like I said, this is the default. Let's pick a bland design. So we can just go to design and pick like the simple design, and it removes all the color. Obviously, Microsoft's, like I said, same thing, has loads of different templates you can use, but we can just remove this. It has blanked out all my things here, so I can make this black because obviously it was white for the templates. So there we go. All right, so now I've done my heading, then these are the swim lanes. Based off of what we've done, how many swim lanes do we need?
And 4.
Sorry, 1, 2,
4 swim
4.
lanes.
Awesome, 4. So we have 2 here already. Once you drag and drop, it already attaches itself here. You don't need to do much. You literally just drag and drop in, and it basically attaches itself. If you give it too much space, it will think it's another phase. So try as much as possible to put it next to the last one. The more you use it, the more intuitive, like you get to know how to do things, how to stretch the page and all of that. But we'll just keep to the stable ones now. So the first function we saw, once you click on it, it will allow you write on it. So the first function was
Customer.
brilliant. All right. The next one was
Receptionist.
yep. Receptionist. The next one,
Waiter.
waiter, and the last one,
Chef.
fantastic. Awesome. So remember, this is a swim lane process. One of the things we say it always does is it has a start and an end. So these are the cross-functional shapes, but we just want basic shapes. So once we click here, we already see the basic shapes that it's giving us. It tells you which is which. As a rule, these are the ones you definitely need. You need your start and end. You need your process, which basically highlights all the different processes, and then you need your decision. Okay, so we forgot that, and someone added it. Okay, sorry, let's go back here again. And then because we need, okay, let's go back. It's fine. I'll add something there just so that we can capture a decision. So again, it's drag and drop. So we click on the start and end key and put it here, and we just put start there. So that's how our process starts. And then once you highlight any of the shapes, it will show you this default. It has the default connectors here. So if you hover over it, you see these 4 basic shapes because they are the shapes you want. If you click on it, it'll literally populate it there for you, or you can drag your next shape and put here. So there are many different ways to do what you want. You, like I said, you can literally click on, it's the same shape that is here. So if you click on it, it'll put one for you. Okay, fine. I want to move that out of the way. And then it will give you a connector as well. I don't really want the connector. It's messing up my swim lane. So let's just basically do it that way. Okay, so the first thing we put there was enters restaurant, right? So that's our trigger. That's the start. Yeah. And like I said, this either gives you a shape or it gives you a connector. So if you want to connect, sorry, it's a bit finicky. So I don't know if you guys can see the connector that is there, but I kind of like doing my own thing myself. So if I want a connector, I can click on the connector and then you can draw a connector from one shape to the other. Once you drag it and you drop, it'll leave it there. And then you keep dragging and dropping until you're done with it and all of that. And then because it's connected, if you move it, oh, sorry. So the connector is there. Once you clicked on the connector, it thinks everything you want to do is a connector. So until you go back to your pointer tool, it won't, there are some functionalities. It will just keep treating everything like you want to connect. So now I've gone back to my pointer tool. So if I move this over here, my connector will move with me because it's connected to the 2 boxes, but I don't want to do that. So I enter the restaurant, and what's the next step? Do we remember what the next step is? Let's go to the next step. So the receptionist seats customer. Remember, we need the tense has to be correct. So it was seated at the table, but it's actually seats customer at the table. So by the time we come here and so the task, you already know whose task this is. The customer enters into the restaurant and the receptionist seats customer at the, so we know whose task this is. So that particular task needs to be in the right swim lane. Yeah. What happened to this? Sorry. I did something here and it has messed up my thingy. But yeah, I'll sort that out a bit later. So the next step is enters into the restaurant, and then that means the next step is actually the the receptionist. So rather than put the box there, I can put it here, and then it's one of two things. I can either delete this and draw a proper line, which is the easiest one to do, or I can change it in a particular way. So again, this doesn't work, but I can move the connector here and move the connector here. So that way it's changed the way I want. And then I can now say seats customer at table. Okay, so we already know that that's the receptionist task. And then the next task is informs the waiter of new customer. So we go back again. The next task is also the receptionist. So rather than drag and drop, remember we dragged and dropped before, so we can just use one of these connectors and click on this, and it gives us a task or an activity box. That's what it is. It's a process, but it's like an activity box. So informs waiter of customer. So who has the next activity?
Waiter.
Okay, and what is the next activity?
Receives information.
Awesome. So because the receptionist informs the waiter, you create a task box on the waiter swim lane, because the next activity belongs to the waiter. So we said it receives info of new customer. Then what is the next one? Gives customer the menu. And so that means the activity is the waiter's activity. So we also write on his swim lane that he gives the customer, gives a menu to customer. Okay. The next task belongs to the customer, right?
Yes.
So that means that we need to go to the customer swim lane to put the next activity. Yeah. So if you, again, it's one of two things. You can either use one of these, your automatic or auto boxes, or again, you can create a box here. The thing I love about Visio most of the time is, I don't know if you see the green lines, it's already positioning it for you. It's already telling you that this is the right position for you. You can see the straight lines, because your process map needs to be neat. Yeah, so try as much as possible to make everything align. So this is the next task. So because it's from the waiter to the customer, you need to put the connector from the waiter to the customer. So you connect it. Now, Visio lines, again, best practice. Visio lines are usually straight or right angles, and you try as much as possible not to let them cross. So that's best practice. Try, as sometimes it's really, really hard. It's really, really, really hard. This is the easy part. Sometimes you have a complicated process map with so many different functions, and you're trying not to let it what do they call it? Let it cross, because sometimes the task can loop around from customer back to the waiter again, and then there are loads of different functions there. So you're like, gosh, how can I make it not cross? So even figuring that out sometimes can be a problem. But basically, your line should be straight or right angles. So if you notice, this is not a straight line. This thing used to bother me so much when I started using Visio. So you have two different options. You can move your box so that it aligns, which is best practice, or you can click on the line and right click it, and then you see all these different what do they call it, options, and then you come here and just click on straight connector. So obviously it's not straight, but yeah, it's fine. So you still have to move it anyway to make it straight, but that's just a way of, if you need to straighten something and it's not really straightening, you basically, they're just bits, tips and tricks you end up knowing the more you use it. But basically this is what it is. Yeah, you just keep adding all those different things because you mapped it out here. It is so easy. Some people will already start creating their map, and then while they're here, they're trying to figure out, okay, who does what, it's already confusing. It's already so confusing. And this is just 4. Sometimes it's 5 or 6 different functions, and there's so many different functions. So best practice, before you start any process map it out already. Some people, yeah, they will use a sketch, a paper and pen, and already start sketching this here before they ever put it on a tool. So there are so many things that people do before they come to a map to say, I want to put it on a map. There's already pre-work they need to do. So basically, because of time, I asked for 15 minutes. It's more than that now. So I'll just try as much as possible to round up and let you guys have a few more minutes for question and answers. But you basically put all this process here. And oh yes, I said I was going to ask you guys. Okay, so we were going to add a decision box. So let's say, let me just do one more so I can add a decision box and kind of show you how that works. So receives menu. So this is supposed to be receives menu from the waiter. So it just receives menu. Receives menu. Let me do that back again. And then, so remember, someone asked for a, when they were asking if you want this, if you want that, and I was like, no, let's just keep it high level. Let's add a decision. So so the waiter asks the what's a question the waiter can ask at this point that the customer can either say yes or no to?
Like drinks.
Brilliant. Okay, so receives menu. So this is our decision box. What can we pre-dinner drink?
I wanted to say, sometimes the waiter asks the customer if they're happy with the food, like food review.
Yeah, but that'll be at the end.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, so we can put a decision box at the end as well, but because I want to show you how it works at this stage, I want us to add a yes or no decision at this stage. So I'll kind of show you like the gateway symbol and how it basically works. So
yeah, so you're gonna say that, would you want a drinks menu or would you want some water for the table, or?
Oh yes, okay, how about if we say, so again, if you're going to draw a what do they call it? If you're going to draw a full process, this is your full process. But let me add a bit of a twist to it. Let's say, for example, that the customer, the waiter asks the customer, do you want to eat in or do you want takeaway? How about that? Would that work?
But sorry, Uzo, if the customer takes takeaway, would we have all the other steps as much as?
Exactly my point. That's why I'm introducing it now. So I want to show you how a gateway works.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's
say,
I think that's a good example.
Say again?
I said, yeah, I think that's a good example.
Decision to eating or not will have been done by the reception.
Yes, I think putting a gateway there would be good.
Yeah, it's just to show you guys. Yeah, it doesn't. It's not. It doesn't have to be this way. But I just want to kind of show you what happens when you put a gateway in the middle of a process and how it can either change or whatever the process. So eat in, And there's always a question mark in your gateway. Always, there always has to be a question mark, because remember, it's a decision. So now you put your connector. So this is your connector. Oops, sorry. Yeah. And so there's a yes or a no. So eat in. From this box, there is a yes or a no. So if it's a yes, actually, if it's a no, let me see. If it's a yes, let me put so this is your yes. If it's a yes, places order. So let's say places order. Yeah. So this is a yes. And then if it's a no, no. So if it's a no, okay, so let's say, for example, if he says he doesn't want to eat in, and oh, I made a mistake, I have to leave right now, so I don't want to eat. No, actually, let's say, okay, no, I don't want to eat in, and then it's an eat in only restaurant. Like, you can't, either you eat in or you don't order. They don't do takeaway. So if he's going to eat in, he stays and he places the order. But if he says he doesn't want to eat in, he has to leave. Okay, so let's just create that scenario. So if he says no, then the process ends because he has to leave. So he can't, there's nothing else, basically. So if he says, no, I don't want to eat, the process has ended. And the way you know this is that every decision box must have the answer in the line. So if this is a decision box, there's a question mark. This is the path he will take if he says yes, and this is the path he will take if he says no. So that all the line, it must always be there. Every decision box must always have a line. And then if he says yes, places order, then we continue. He receives menu, places an order. Let's skip looks through the menu, places an order, and then receives order, passes to chef, receives, or all that process continues here because he says yes. So places an order with, remember, he places an order with the waiter. So we have to bring this activity there. So it receives the order, and then we continue until we're done. But if he says, no, I don't want to eat in, I want to take away, the restaurant doesn't take, let's just assume that the restaurant doesn't do takeaway. So that means he has to go. And then that means the process has ended. But then this other process continues up until it ends here, where he exits the restaurant. So we'll continue mapping out all this entire process. And then when he's done, it ends again. So there's a second end. We don't, like I said, we don't have time, but there's a second end. So this is one possible end there. So a process can have multiple ends. If, for example, the person makes a decision and the decision means ending the process in a different way. But if he says yes, the process continues. And then what people do most of the time is that they color these boxes. So the start is usually green, and the end is usually red. So that way, if you just look at it, you already know that regardless of whatever else is here, it has a start and an end. And let's say we continue, then there'll be another end here. So I won't confuse you, but there'll be a second end. So this is your like a one possible ending to the process, and it can continue and end another way. So once you look here, you already know that there's a start here, there's an end here, there's a decision box here. There could be multiple decision boxes in many different places. Does the chef have the order? Yes, he has the order. if he doesn't have the order, he has to go back to tell the guy, could you pick something else? Does the receptionist, are they paying with cash or card? If he only has card, he'll pay a particular way. The process can have so many different gateways or decision points, but you have to be able to capture all of them. But this is just a quick, very, very quick, what do they call it? Demonstration of how to use Visio and how to create your cross-functional flowchart. As you can see, is really interesting because you get to like go through all the different doors, yes or no. Another best practice thing as well is what some people do, because like I said, some of these processes can be huge. So some people actually label and add. I do that as well. So I add numbers to all the different processes. So this, for example, is my 1. And for that, you definitely need a text box. So you add your text box here, click on text, and your text box appears. And then you have your 1. And then this is your 2. Bring it a bit closer. Oops, sorry. Let's put our 2 back there again. Oops, sorry. What happened? See, Visio can be wonderful. You just have to learn it. Okay, so now this is a tech. It's so finicky, but it's nice. If you know how to use it, you know how to use it. Please don't let it discourage you. So you've created a text box. If you click again, it'll create another text box and another text box. So because I want to move this closer, I'll just click on my pointer tool, and then it'll allow me move the box closer. So I'll just move my 2 closer to the box here. And once I tap out of it, you don't even see the box. You just see the number. But if it's still on text, it'll keep creating text boxes for you. And then when you come to your decision, because again, remember your decision is a yes and no. Oops, where did that go? Yeah, okay. So for something like this, let's say this is a, very quickly. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this is an 8. Where's my text? So this would be my 8. Oops, sorry. This would be my 8A because it's a decision. Let me move it a bit. No, actually. So this is, sorry. So this is my 8. So this is my 8. And then, do you know what? Yeah, it's fine. And then because you see, that's the thing, because this has moved, it's moved my angle, what did they call it? My arrow. So I don't want it to move my arrow. Please go back to where you were. Thank you. So let's have my 8 there, and sorry. It can be, again, it's just learning how to maneuver it most of the time, but sometimes these little things that people do to try and make it look okay, it makes a difference. Honestly, it really does. You present something and it looks, people can understand what you're talking about. They're not asking too many questions. If you present something that people can follow, then the questions they're asking, what just happened? The questions they're asking are basically questions that, you know, are things that they need to ask, rather than, oh, where does this go, or blah 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 blah. So anyway, yeah, so that's an 8. Then that means this is an 8A. What just happened? Nope. My 8A. And this can be my 8B. And then I'll go back to my pointer tool. I'll resize it and move it so people know what this is referring to. and then move this as well. So in a bit of a nutshell, that is your quick Visio tutorial. It's actually quite nice to do, honestly. And so you don't have to talk too much. Once you present this to your people, everyone looks through and they're able to look at bottlenecks. And they're like, okay, so why do we even need the receptionist there? Or, okay, we need to maybe give the receptionist a bit more responsibility and not put everything on the waiter. Maybe that will help efficiency. So all those questions now start to come up because you have the process mapped out and you can actually see everything and it's easier to work through. All right, now let you guys ask any question it is you have because we have gone far past our time. Okay, Damilola, your hand is up. Please go ahead. I hope you're the first person.
Yes, I am. Hi.
Go ahead.
Already quite. I think I'll let someone else go. I've been waiting for quite some time, and
Oh,
all
I'm
the
so
questions
sorry. I couldn't
gone
see
off
the
my.
hands that were
Oh no,
up.
oh no, it's not your part. I should have written them down, but I can't remember now. Sorry. I'll come back after Jack.
Okay. All right, Shadrach, I think you're next.
Yeah, my question is, so according to what you say, I think you're saying in a cross-function diagram, you can have two ends, yeah?
Yeah, you can have multiple ends.
Okay. And my other one is, how did you get to the, when we wrote the notebook, is that like a Microsoft app on your own or?
Oh, no, yeah, it's part of Microsoft's suite. So it's like Excel, Word, all of that. It gives you OneNote. So that's OneNote.
Is that on Microsoft 365? This one asked.
Yes, if you have the Microsoft 365 suite, is one of them. Yeah, it is.
Right.
It is actually connected with your Outlook as well. So just do a search for OneNote, it'll come up. Microsoft most of the time will even give you for free. It wants people to use all those tools. So
okay.
And
Thank
it's so good. It's really good. It's a lovely way to organize your notes. Anyway, let me not do that. It's fine. Yeah, it's available. It's fine.
Yeah,
Cool.
thank you.
You're welcome. Jack, go ahead.
Yeah, quick one. So in terms of the visual, at what point would it come in the process? Would this come after the conversation about the elicitation and then the mapping happens?
Yeah. So remember, you're a BA with a toolkit. So you go in and they're telling you, oh, it would be awesome if we understood this process and if we knew, we could blah, blah. And they have a conversation like, oh, you guys need a process map. I got you. Let me do your process map. And then you already know, okay, you need to do a process map based on what they need it for. Okay, you need a high level one or you need a level 1 or level 2, something detailed. They want to know exactly where the bottleneck is. So you might need to delve deeper. So once you've done all of that, okay, so who are the people that are the owners of the process? They're your SMEs, they're your subject matter experts. You go and meet them and you get the information from them. Or, we're working on this project to do this, get them to understand the need for it. If they're not already part of your project, sometimes they are, so you don't need to do all of that. But if they're not, you need to explain to them, we want to improve, just basically talk to them. We're working on this project. This is what it's about. We really need your input. We want to, map out this process in order to do blah, blah, blah. Could you walk me through your process? And they walk you through your process. You write it down, check it with them, make sure it's fine. Is this okay? Great. All right. Let me go and map it out. You map it out, you get back to them again and say, okay, this is what I've done based on what you talked about. Is this actually correct? And they're like, 100% brilliant. Or they tell you, oh, you missed something out, and then you add it, and then you present it to the people that asked for it, and that's it. So that's a quick walkthrough of the last 2 hours.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Cool. Abisola, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, so based on what you said, does that mean that you do multiple process maps as you work through, or is it, because I think when I've been looking online, there's as is. So is it just 2 that you do, or do you do more than as you update the service, the processes?
Brilliant question. And if we had more time, I would show you your as is and to be, but you already know, okay, so if you're working in a project where you're like, they want to improve the process. So once you've mapped this process out now, and they're like, okay, you know, we want to have digital ordering. We don't want to use the waiter anymore. We want to introduce maybe a digital waiter, or they can order through a system. Then it's because you've mapped out what the current process is. You already know what the tasks are that need to be performed. They'll now add the system. They're like, okay, when we add the system, this is how that process will look like. There will be a receptionist to welcome the person, but there won't be any waiter. From their table, they can literally just click on what they want. The menu appears and they click on what they want, and then it goes straight to the chef, and the chef gets a notification, and then, you know, he prepares the meal, and the waiter is now, the only time the waiter comes is when the waiter is bringing the meal out. So that's now a new process that will be created once they add that, you know, digital ordering system. So you've created the way it is now, the current state as is. You now map a to be, the future state. So when we now introduce that new technology, this is how it's going to look. Look at the difference. You now have your as is and your to be, and they're looking at both maps and say, okay, can you imagine? We've saved man hours here. We've made this process faster. We're able, you know, so they're able to see what it would look like, what it currently looks like, and what it looks like. So that's your as is and to be for this particular process. But remember, there are loads of different processes. Let's take that restaurant, for example. We just talked about the ordering process. What about the payment process? What about the what else? What other process again? What maybe they have like a delivery, an online delivery arm. What about that process? So they may tell you, we want to literally document every single process that this restaurant has. So you now have to think about the entire operation, and then now start mapping out all the different processes. And then you can map out the as is and to be. It could be a full-on task, depending on the task they give you. Maybe that's all they bring you in to do as a BA. We just want to map it, and you spend months because you have to actually go through all these people. Then you map everything out, and you finish with one and they approve it, and then you go to another. So you map as many processes as is needed, and you map it the way it is needed. Remember, we talked about CPOC, we talked about value. There's so many different kinds of processes. You know, these are just the basic ones. Once you can say, I know cross-functional, swim lanes, you talk about it intelligently, you talk about use cases intelligently, you talk about BPMN intelligently, UML, put all those things on your CV, learn about them, talk about them intelligently. That will get you the job as a BA. When you get there and someone tells you, you know, I think we may need to create a value stream diagram, because you already know how a process map works. You may not have done it before, but you just do a bit more research, and then you follow the same process, and then you map it out. It's the same tools, the same process, the same everything. It's just that the way it will come out will be different. And because it's a value stream diagram, the things you want to highlight are different. Same thing with the CPOC one, same thing with all the different ones. But once you know these basic ones, you're good when it comes to process mapping. And then you can use Visio. People use PowerPoint because they can't use Visio. So once you can use Visio, that is another tool you can put on your CV to say, hand on my chest, I can do a process map with Visio. If you can use Visio, you can use Lucidchart, you can use all the others. Visio is actually the market standard, is one of the highest. Apart from that one I told you IBM does, but then that's like, it's so people, it's very expensive and it's next level. But yeah, market standard, trust Microsoft, is Visio. Just like Azure, just like all the other markets. So once you have these, you're done as a BA, like you're fine. Go and get your job. Anything else they ask you to do, you're fine. You can do it. Yeah. Awesome. I hope that answers your question, Abisola.
Yes, it did. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Ijoma, go ahead.
Good evening.
Hi.
I just wanted to find out, you know, when you said the start is green and then the end is red,
yeah,
is there a special color for pain points within the process, or is it at our discretion to color code it anyhow we want it?
Yes.
And then is there a special diagram for identifying pain points within the process?
No. So once you look at a process, you can see where there's a problem. And even if you can't see, the managers or the other stakeholders who are decision makers will be able to see. You can, while you're doing it, you can say, okay, I noticed that there were a few things here. But sometimes when you've mapped it out, it's just like taking a photograph. When you've taken a photograph of it, the people that need to look at that photograph and see what is wrong, they're able to do it easily. You just made their job easy. You know, they won't have been able to visualize it because there's so many different steps, but you've put it on a map and they can see the process in front of them. So it's very easy for them to look and see, oh, okay, we need to change this, we need to do this, you now have conversations around your process map because they can visualize it, they can see it now, it's easy. So you, maybe from experience, you may be able to tell that there are weaknesses and all those sorts of things, but you don't need to. All you literally need to do is create the map, and then the stakeholders would be the ones to use it for whatever they want to use it for. Yeah.
Okay, so what you're saying in essence is we just do the process map from start to finish. It's
Yeah.
not our job to identify the pain points for them, even though we know it.
Not really. If they, again, it's almost like everything. If they ask for your recommendation, or you have a manager or someone who is open to hear your opinion, you can always talk up. It's a free world. You can say, this is what I noticed. You could even point it out to them. Do you understand? But so you can't say, oh, it's not my job to know. You may not even be knowledgeable enough to point some of those things out. But if you are, you can definitely speak up and give your opinion in a respectful way. And most people would recognize it. Sometimes they will, sometimes they won't. You've done what you need to do. Do you understand? So your job is to create a process map that gets people to look and understand what the process is, and whatever the purpose of that process map, they can take it from there. Anything else is additional. So it's not necessarily to say it's your job, but it's not your job. Your main job there is to create the process map. If you're able to add additional value, brilliant. If you're not, you still did your job perfectly well. No one's going to ask you for anything more. You know, and then for color coding, the standard is start is green and end is red. And then for the rest, people just kind of do what they want. Some people like colors, some people don't, you know, but try as much as possible not to use jarring colors or colors that are not, you know, be very conscious of the fact that something may look garish, or you use a color and then no one can see the text because you use a particular color. So all those things are things, you know, if you know it's going to distract from the work you're doing, just leave it blank, or, you know, find the best way to. But apart from start and end, there's no industry practice for color for any of the other activities or tasks.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Damisola, go ahead.
Thank you. My first question is, earlier you addressed the as is and to be for processes or projects. I can't quite remember. So my question is, in the case of the greenfield project, where I wouldn't expect an as is, what happens there?
Okay, so if there is no as is because it's greenfield, then your process map can be a to be. So you're like, okay, when we're done with this process, for example, the SharePoint project you're working on, there isn't an existing process, but by the time you're done, this is what the process should be. So you can just create the future state of the process so people will understand, since there isn't anything to document at the moment. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And the second question is about my understanding of a BA, the difference between a BA and a PO. Could you please shed some light on that, please?
They're different roles. And in a very short, succinct explanation, the PO represents the business and the BA is part of the project team. Remember, the BA is the bridge between the business and the project team. But the PO represents the interest of the business. So they're the ones that usually tell you what the requirements are. So these are what the business objectives are. This is what we want to achieve. And when they tell you that, then you are the one to translate those requirements into user stories for the project team to work on. So that's basically the job. The product owner is usually the voice of the business. They represent the business. They understand what the requirements are. They know what the strategy is, what the goal is, what the objectives are. They may not really know how it's going to get done, but they know at the end of the day, this is the product I want. So they will let you know what all the requirements are. You translate those requirements into user stories so that it could be interpreted, understood, developed by the project team. And then once you guys develop it, you go back to the project owner. Actually, before that, once you're done with the user stories, the product owner approves it to make sure that you were able to capture the requirements properly. Once it's been approved, then it's committed into your sprint, it's developed, tested, produced, and then you go back to the business and the product owner to review and sign off on. Sometimes the product owner also has other people in the business that are, because they report to other people as well. So just like you are the bridge, they also talk to the business stakeholders as well. So whatever it is they're coming with what the business needs, and then they go back to the business to say, okay, we've answered, this is the solution to your need, and all of that. So sometimes they may come with all those stakeholders as well, because there are loads of different people that have a stake in what you're developing. So it may not just be the PO, but basically that's what the PO, in a nutshell, just like the BA has loads of different tasks. I just simplified it into one statement. That's also how the PO has loads of different tasks. But in a nutshell, those are their responsibilities. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, final question.
Sure.
You mentioned use cases, and I know we BAs are also supposed to help create user stories. So what are the similarities between both, or the differences?
Okay. Remember, I always say that the answer is in the name. The purpose of the thing is in the name. I really like that as a BA. So a user story is the requirement from the perspective of the user. So you're literally saying that by the time this product is done, the user should have this particular experience. This is what the user wants to do. No, this is who the user is. This is what the user wants to do, and this is the outcome they expect. So that's the user story. A user story is a requirement that has been written in a way that the development team can work on it and the testers can test it. So that's what a user story is. It's a requirement that has been put in the language and the perspective of a user. So it's the smallest what do they call it, units of a requirement that the developer, that's the technical term. I'm trying to use words that you will understand, apart from like the technical way. I'm just trying to use everyday words. So that's a user story. A use case is a scenario of how you use something, either a system or anything. So for example, you have an iPad. You can use an iPad in multiple different ways. Now you need to highlight all the different use cases for that iPad. So you can use an iPad as a calculator. You can use it as a book. You can use it to watch YouTube. So those are all the different scenarios. They're all the different use cases and everything. So if you go on a project, sometimes you hear them talking about use cases. Could you tell me some of the use cases that your team members encounter, or what they do? And when you hear it in that way, you already know that they're already asking for how do they work? Tell us some examples of how they usually work, some of the activities they do. So that's a use case. So you as a BA, you create a use case diagram. Many people forget to add that diagram there, and that's why there's a confusion. So you don't create a use case, you create a use case diagram, and you write a user story from the requirements, and you put it on the product backlog so that the developers can work on it and the testers can test it. And at the end of the day, we have a product. It's part of a product. So those are the different what do they call it, explanations. Remember, user story, use case, diagram, or use case. It's just, a use case is just a scenario. That's basically what it is. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Shadrach and Ijoma, new hands, old hands. Shadrach. Or is it an old hand? Is it a legacy hand?
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay, brilliant. All right. No one else's hand is up. So I want to believe that, we've asked all the questions. I just want to thank you guys. 3 hours. You guys are amazing. We're supposed to do 2 and you guys did 3. Thank you so much for staying. I hope you got value from it. And yeah, the next one, I think we'll have a user journey mapping one. And then you see how that's different. It's also another interesting concept. So yeah, I'll let you guys enjoy the rest of your night. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Izo.
James,
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your time. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.